Hey folks, how you doing? Good to be back with you. Subscribe. Subscribe to my channel so that I can continue to bring practical news about religion and mythology. So today I figured I'd talk about, after some consideration, pronouncing the God's name. Well, we hear this all the time about, we hear the God's name pronounced all the time. Is it being pronounced in vain? You know? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. You see, we'll be surprised. Okay. So we'll discuss this about the God's name. And the benefit that some people receive from pronouncing the God's name correctly. Some people don't receive the benefit from pronouncing the God's name. It is because they are not religious practitioners. Or they may go to the church, to the temple, to the synagogue, or wherever else, and attend service, etc. But this doesn't mean that they are practitioners of their religion. They just attend the service. How is it that so many people, are not familiar with this idea of pronouncing the God's name, etc.? And why is it valuable to some people? It is indeed a value to some. Okay. So when a person just calls the God's name, an everyday person just calls the God's name, whether it's Allah, whether it's Christ, whether it's Jehovah or Ehu or Hu-He or whatever, whether it's Tum, Atum, Ta, he just calls the God's name. Is he doing it in vain? No. Why? You know what I mean? What happens when a person calls the God's name, let's say, in vain, is that the name becomes trite. It becomes ineffective because of overuse. You see? But the everyday person is not practicing anyway. He's not practicing his religion, even though he claims that he's a member of the religion. It is that practitioner, the person who gets involved in the rituals, often, you see, it is this person who calls on or who pronounces the name of his God. Okay? And if he turns around and starts pronouncing the name or calling the name every day like a lot of people do, you know what I mean? Then he is using the Lord's name in vain because he is the one who seeks the benefit from pronouncing the name relative to his practice, during his rituals, etc. You see, he cannot afford to call the God's name to any old time, because with him it will become trite and ineffective. You see. You don't want the name to become ineffective if you are a true practitioner of any religion. You don't want the name to become ineffective. You see, because the name of the God, whatever religion you belong to, the name of the God has power. And if you pronounce the name correctly, you release that power. So the practitioner seeks to pronounce the name correctly so that he can release the power within himself. You see, the human body is the temple. Not that building down there, not that building over there. The human body is the temple. You see. And so the person wants to release that power in his temple, his body. So this tells us that the religion has a lot to do with human physiology. You see. The way to heaven is through the body. You see. So it's the practitioner then who will lose out if he turns around and starts using the name loosely. Then the name is being used in vain by him who would benefit from using it wisely during his practice. But the everyday folks don't practice like this. They don't know about the true practices of religion. Why? Why not? They belong to the religion. Billions of people, many of them passed on. Billions of them are still here, who don't understand their religion, and not only that, they are afraid to understand it. Because of what they have been taught all their lives. As they say, the scripture says, put no other God before me. Okay? So if you talk to a person about a God of another religion, you're committing that sin, and you're going to incur the wrath of the Father. You see what I'm saying? So people are afraid. When you talk about a religion where they had maybe 5, 10, 15, or 100 gods, whoa, all those gods, such folks had to be committing a sin. You know what I mean? It is fear of the Father that stops people from understanding their own religious scriptures. You see? If they understood their religious scriptures, then they would understand this about using the Lord's name in vain and many other things. So when a person says, well, Jesus Christ, he's not using the Lord's name in vain because he's really not a practitioner anyway. He has nothing to lose, really. Okay? It is the power in the name that a person seeks to release within himself for curative purposes, a person may be experiencing some discomfort, some illness, psychological or medical. And in the olden days, the person would go to a priest. The priest knew to do. The priest knew how to call upon the God within a person, call the God's name to release that energy that would be helpful to helping that person overcome his discomfort. So people need to get rid of the fear that they have within themselves. Fear of self-knowledge. People are afraid to know themselves. You see. Through this self-knowledge, a person can call upon the name of the Lord, their God, in order to release the power. But this happens within. Remember, the body is your temple. These things go on within your body. You see. But let's take the Christian system. I say there's only one God. But in the Christian system, we got Jesus, or you can call him Jesus Christ. We have Mary. Well, she's a goddess, but hey, she's there, and people don't worship Mary. They go to Mary and pray, etc. You know. Okay. Then you have Joseph. Yeah, he's a god too. You know. They didn't tell you that. Joseph is the stepfather of Jesus, not the biological father. Mary performed the procedure on her own. She didn't need a man for that. She did it on her own. Like the great mother, they say. You know. But so Joseph is the stepfather. You know what I mean? But Joseph, in the Christian tradition, was a carpenter. Remember? He was a carpenter. And he is associated with the Chemite god Seb, who was the stepfather of the son of Isis or Osset. He was the stepfather of Heru, or Horus in the Greek tradition. You see what I mean? So you can see that he like counterpart. They have something in common. Joseph and Seb. Joseph, Seb. That sort of rings a bell there. You know what I mean? And so Seb was associated with wood. The Chemite god. He's the father. He's the god of the earth god. And he's associated with wood. Joseph was a carpenter. He was associated with wood too. So we got Joseph as also a god. You can call him the earth god, the god of earth, like Seb. He is the counterpart of Seb. Seb anticipated Joseph. It was Seb first. In the Christian tradition, he became Joseph. Okay. So we have these religions, and they have different gods. They have more than one. Even though it said there's only one, you know. But there's more than one. And different traditions where they say there's only one God, they have more than one. You'd have to understand the scripture. People are afraid to get into the scripture really because they put fear in their hearts. The fear wipes knowledge out of the way. This way, they keep you dumb. Honestly. That's what happened. Okay, folks, have a good day. And I'll be back with you soon. Bye.